You meet someone, you click, you laugh, you share, you feel seen. And just when you're starting to believe in the connection, silence. No call, no text, no explanation, just gone. That's ghosting. And it sucks. You meet someone and everything seems to click. There's laughter, connection, shared moments that make you feel seen and valued. Then suddenly it's no warning, no explanation, just a vanishing act that leaves you wondering what went wrong. Ghosting hurts so deeply because it's not just rejection. It's rejection without reason. When someone walks away without a word, your mind scrambles for answers. And in the absence of clarity, we often fill in the blanks in ways that damage our own self-worth. The pain of ghosting runs deeper than we often admit. It feels like emotional whiplash. One moment you're close, and the next you're left hanging in confusion. It opens up wounds of abandonment, even if they were buried for years. You begin to doubt yourself, question your value, and wonder if you were ever truly enough. The hardest part is that, with no closure, a part of you keeps hoping they'll come back. You find yourself checking your phone, overthinking every conversation, replaying what you said and did, searching for the moment they decided to disappear. But healing starts when you stop chasing answers that may never come. Their silence, as painful as it is still a form of communication. It tells you they lacked the emotional maturity or courage to be honest with you. That is not your fault. It's crucial to stop personalizing their behavior, because ghosting is rarely about something you did. It's a reflection of how they handle discomfort, not a measure of your worth. Start asking yourself what this experience taught you. Maybe now you're more aware of what emotional availability looks like, or doesn't. This pain isn't permanent, but it can leave scars if you don't take your power back. Begin by reconnecting with yourself. Instead of chasing someone who disappeared, choose to invest in the one person who stayed. You pour your energy into your own healing, growth, and self-respect. You don't need to become guarded, just wiser once the apology. Learn to trust yourself more deeply so you can recognize when someone's actions don't match their words. The right person won't leave you guessing. They'll stay, they'll show up, and they'll make you feel secure. And that's exactly what you deserve. When someone ghosts you, it can deal a heavy blow to your self-worth. You start questioning everything about yourself, your words, your actions, even your appearance. Thoughts like, was I not enough? Or did I do something wrong? Begin to loop in your head, making you doubt your value. It's natural to want closure, and when you don't get it, your mind tries to fill in the blanks. Unfortunately, apology has been. Those blanks often get filled with harsh judgments about yourself that simply aren't true. You might start to feel like something about you pushed them away. You replay conversations, reread messages, and try to spot the moment it all went wrong. But the truth is, ghosting rarely has anything to do with who you are. It has everything to do with how the other person handles discomfort, fear, or disinterest. Disappearing instead of communicating isn't a reflection of your worth. It's a sign of their inability to deal with adult conversations. The danger in internalizing ghosting is that it makes you question your value in future relationships. You might become hesitant to open up again, fearing you'll be abandoned without warning. But one person's silence doesn't define your lovability. It doesn't mean you weren't interesting, attractive, or kind enough. It means they lacked the maturity to be honest, and that has nothing to do with you. Their inability to communicate isn't proof of your failure. It's proof of their limitations. To heal from this, you have to consciously remind yourself that someone's decision to ghost you says more about them than it ever will about you. Take your power back by refusing to let their silence shape your self-image. Remind yourself of your strengths, your values, and your capacity to love deeply. You are still enough. You are always enough once the apology has been. And someone who is truly ready for connection will never leave you questioning your worth through silence. Ghosting creates a kind of emotional whiplash that leaves you dizzy and disoriented. One moment, everything feels right. You're sharing personal stories, bonding over little things like favorite movies, and feeling like you're finally connecting with someone who sees you. Then, all of a sudden, they disappear without a trace. The crash from that emotional high to total silence is sharp and painful. It's not a slow fade out or a mutual goodbye. It's a hard stop that feels like you were yanked out of something meaningful without any warning. This sudden shift can feel like a betrayal, especially if things seem to be going well. You begin to question whether any of it was real. The kind words, the deep conversations, the sweet gestures, all of it starts to feel like a lie. Once the apology has been, that confusion adds another layer to the hurt. You're not just grieving the loss of a person. You're grieving the version of reality you thought you were living in. It messes with your trust, not just in others, but in your own judgment. That kind of emotional turbulence can be exhausting. It drains your energy, clouds your thoughts, and pulls you into overthinking mode. You start playing back moments, searching for signs you missed or mistakes you made. Once apology has been, you wonder how something felt so genuine could end so abruptly. The emotional chaos isn't just about the loss. It's about the way it ended, without a single word of explanation, leaving you to untangle all the feelings on your own. The shock of ghosting isn't just about missing someone's presence. It's about the sudden disappearance of the emotional connection you believed was mutual. It's the sharp contrast between feeling valued one day and invisible the next. That kind of emotional confusion makes it hard to move on quickly. But over time, when you recognize that their silence was their choice and not your fault, you start to regain your balance. You realize that you deserve emotional consistency, not chaos, and that anyone who can leave so abruptly wasn't meant to stay. Ghosting doesn't just hurt because someone left. It hurts because of what it brings up from our past. Often, without even realizing it, the silence and sudden disappearance trigger deep-rooted emotions tied to earlier experiences of abandonment. These moments might come from childhood, like a parent who was emotionally distant or unavailable, or from past relationships where someone made you feel like you didn't matter. When a person ghosts you, it's like those old wounds are ripped open again, and you feel the same pain with double intensity. Has been, even if you've worked through past experiences or thought you'd moved on, ghosting can feel like a sudden reminder that those fears of being left behind still live inside you. Once the apology, that's why it hurts more than it logically should, It's not just about the person who disappeared today. It's about all the people who walked away before, all the times you felt unimportant, unseen, or unloved. Your mind might know that the ghoster isn't worth your energy, but your heart is reacting to something much older and deeper. What makes this kind of emotional response especially confusing is that it can come out of nowhere. You might feel unusually upset, anxious, or angry, and not fully understand why it's hitting so hard. That's because the pain isn't only about the person who ghosted you. It's about what they represented, that they unknowingly stepped on a sensitive part of your past, and your body and emotions responded the way they did years ago when you first felt abandoned. It's a flood of old feelings triggered by a fresh event. Understanding this doesn't make the pain vanish, but it helps you separate the present from the past. It gives you the chance to see that while ghosting is painful, part of what you're feeling isn't about this one person. It's about unhealed parts of your story that need compassion, not blame. When you realize that, you can begin to care for yourself more gently, knowing that healing means more than just getting over a person. It means healing the parts of you that were hurting long before they ever came along. One of the hardest parts of being ghosted is that there's no clear ending. When someone walks away without saying a word, it leaves the situation feeling unfinished. That sense of being left in the middle of something causes your mind to hold on, hoping maybe they'll return with an explanation or an apology. You might find yourself constantly checking your phone, looking at their online activity, or rereading old messages, trying to find clues that they might still care or come back. This kind of hope can be emotionally exhausting. It keeps you stuck in a loop, waiting for something that may never happen, instead of focusing on your own peace and healing. Your attention remains tied to someone who has already shown you that they're not willing to communicate. It's like standing at a closed door, knocking again and again, even though no one is answering. The silence becomes louder each day, but you still hesitate to walk away completely. That false sense of possibility can hold you hostage without even realizing it. You make excuses for them, telling yourself they're just busy or going through something. You justify their behavior to protect yourself from the reality that they chose not to give you the clarity or respect you deserve. And in doing so, you put your own emotional needs on pause, waiting for someone else to decide when your story ends. Letting go of that hope isn't easy, but it's necessary for your peace of mind. Accepting their silence as a final answer doesn't mean you weren't worth a goodbye. It just means you're choosing to no longer wait for someone who didn't value your time or presence. You start healing the moment you decide to stop looking back and start reconnecting with your own life. That's when real closure begins. Not when they return, but when you no longer need them to. Healing after being ghosted begins when you stop chasing the answers you're never going to get. It's incredibly frustrating to feel like someone disappeared without giving you the decency of closure. But the truth is, continuing to search for reasons only drags out your pain. You might go back and forth in your mind, trying to analyze every last detail, but none of that brings real peace. The freedom comes when you Accept that sometimes people leave not because of something you did, but because of something inside them they don't know how to handle. Acceptance doesn't mean you're okay with what happened. It means you're no longer fighting against reality. You stop expecting a message that probably isn't coming. You stop waiting for someone to come back and explain themselves. Instead, you accept that their silence is their message. It says everything about how they deal with situations, and it's not a reflection of your worth. You don't need a detailed explanation to validate what you felt. Your experience was real, even if they didn't honor it with a proper goodbye. The more you accept their disappearance as a choice they made, the more you begin to reclaim your energy. All that effort spent wondering, waiting, and hoping begins to return to you. You start using that emotional space for yourself, for understanding your own feelings, for doing things that make you feel whole again, and for rebuilding your trust in yourself. Acceptance is a quiet but powerful shift. It's the moment you decide that even without closure, you're ready to move forward. There's a deep strength in letting go, especially when you didn't the answers you thought you needed. You realize that their absence doesn't define you. What defines you is how you choose to respond to it. Do you stay stuck in a place that hurt you? Or do you rise, even with unanswered questions? Apology has been. Healing begins when you choose to stop waiting for someone else to set you free and decide instead to free yourself. That decision changes everything. When someone ghosts you, it's easy to take their silence as a personal rejection. You might start to believe that you did something wrong, that you weren't interesting enough, attractive enough, or lovable enough to keep their attention. These thoughts creep in quietly and start to shape how you see yourself, especially when there's no explanation to challenge them. The brain tries to make sense of the sudden loss by blaming the one thing it can control: yourself. But the truth is, their decision to disappear without a word says far more about them than it does about you. Has been. Ghosting is often an escape tactic used by people who are unwilling or unable to face discomfort. Instead of expressing how they feel or communicating honestly, they choose the easier route: disappearing. This avoidance isn't a sign of your inadequacy. It's a sign of their inability to handle emotional responsibility. Their silence is not proof that you failed. It's proof that they lack the courage to be real with you. Once you start seeing it this way, you can take the emotional pressure off your own shoulders. Paula has been. You realize that you didn't make them ghost you. You were showing up with openness and vulnerability. Qualities that deserve respect, not abandonment. If they couldn't match your emotional maturity, that's their limitation, not yours. The apology, the ghosting, was never about you not being good enough. Once the apology is about them not being ready to engage with someone who actually showed up. Understanding this shift is a powerful step toward healing. You stop seeing yourself as the one got left behind and start seeing yourself as someone who dodged a person who couldn't communicate honestly. You start reclaiming your confidence, reminding yourself that you are not defined by the actions of someone who chose to disappear. The right person will not run from hard conversations. They'll stay, they'll talk, and they'll make you feel safe being exactly who you are. Every painful experience carries, With it, a lesson, apology has been, even if it doesn't feel that way at first. When someone ghosts you, it might initially feel like a senseless act of cruelty or disrespect, but with time and reflection, you begin to see things more clearly. Has been. You start to understand what emotional availability really looks like by recognizing what it doesn't. A person who disappears when things get real or slightly complicated is not emotionally ready to give or receive love in a healthy way. That clarity, though born from pain, is a gift for your future self. As you process the experience, you begin to notice patterns. Maybe there were subtle red flags that you ignored in the excitement of connection. Maybe you felt small hesitations in your gut, once the eulogy has been, moments when their words didn't match their actions. These are not reasons to blame yourself, but opportunities to learn how to better protect your heart next time. Pain sharpens your awareness. It teaches you to move slower, listen more deeply to your intuition, and recognize when someone isn't showing up with consistency. Through this kind of growth, you begin to set new standards for yourself. You no longer settle for mixed signals, half-effort communication, or relationships that only thrive when it's easy. You start valuing consistency over charm, presence over potential, and honesty over attention. These shifts change how you view relationships and, more importantly, how you view yourself. You become more rooted in your worth and less likely to accept anything that feels confusing, unbalanced, or uncertain. The experience of being ghosted may leave a scar, but that scar can become a reminder of how much wiser you've become. It shows that you survived something that once felt unbearable and turned it into something meaningful. You begin to trust yourself again, knowing that you're more equipped to choose people who treat you with care and respect. Instead of letting that moment define your story, you let it refine the kind of love you're willing to accept moving forward. Ghosting has a way of pulling all your energy outward. You find yourself stuck thinking about them constantly. What they're doing, why they left, whether they'll come back. It becomes a loop of overanalyzing their silence, their last words, and even their social media activity. You start to forget about your own needs because your attention is so wrapped around the person who left. It's draining and, over time, leaves you feeling disconnected not just from them, but from yourself. That's why healing requires a shift in focus. It's not about figuring them out anymore. It's about coming back to you. What makes you feel whole? What brings you peace? Instead of asking why they disappeared, start asking what you need to feel grounded again. Maybe it's taking care of your body with rest and movement, or spending time with people who make you feel valued. Maybe it's expressing your thoughts through journaling or finding new ways to feel joy. The more you redirect your attention inward, the more power you begin to reclaim. This is also the perfect time to rebuild your sense of self-worth. You deserve to be loved, has been respected, and communicated with clearly. Someone ghosting you doesn't change any of that. It's a reflection of their emotional capacity, not your value. When you begin to speak kindly to yourself again, remind yourself of your strengths and treat your needs with importance, something begins to shift. You stop chasing closure from others and start giving yourself the comfort you were seeking all along. Over time, the obsession fades. You think about them less and about your own growth more. You become more centered in your own life, creating new routines and setting boundaries that protect your heart. You remember that you are not defined by who walked away, but by how you rise after being hurt. This is where healing really begins. Not when they come back, but when you fully return to yourself. After being ghosted, it's easy to feel like you need to build a wall around your heart. The pain makes you want to protect yourself at all costs to avoid ever feeling that kind of disappointment again. You may tell yourself not to get too close, not to care too much, and to always expect the worst so you won't be surprised. But while it's natural to want to guard yourself, becoming emotionally closed off isn't the solution. It keeps out not only potential pain, but also real, meaningful connection. Apology has been. What actually helps you move forward is learning to trust yourself more deeply. Apology has been. It's not about never trusting others. It's about listening to your instincts and honoring your own feelings. When you sense something is off, when someone's actions don't align with their words, has been, or when their energy doesn't match the effort you're putting in, it's okay to step back, has been. You don't need to wait for them to disappear to protect yourself. You're allowed to walk away from uncertainty with your head high and your self-respect intact. Being smart after hurt means setting boundaries that are based on self-love, not fear. It means giving people a chance, but not ignoring the signs when something feels wrong. You learn to be open, but no longer naive. You can care deeply without losing yourself in someone else's silence or absence. This kind of emotional maturity allows you to connect more authentically because you're choosing people who meet you with the same honesty and intention that you bring to the table. In the end, ghosting doesn't have to harden you. It can make you wiser, more aware, and more connected to your inner voice. You learn to stop waiting for others to validate your worth and instead begin to trust your ability to walk away when something no longer serves you. Has been. That's the real strength. Not becoming cold, but becoming clear. You still believe in love, apology has been. But now you believe in loving yourself first, and that changes everything.